Hey guys, I'm back for another game. And instead of tweaking it up, we decided to play good old Rayne. Um, I don't have the money for the Vanillion click to test them out yet, but we're getting there. Tweaked the deck a little bit. Um, Hopefully you enjoy it. Uh, Unfortunately, I have to tell you in advance, this replay does have a bug, but it is very late in the game, and it was about to be sealed up by that point. And I wanted to put this game up anyway because it really highlights one of the important things, uh, aspects of how to play. Our opponent's playing Jor Kadeen the Prevailer. Let's pop him out. So Jor Kadeen is a 5 mana 5/4 with first strike. That's nothing terribly good. First strike doesn't really bother me. Honestly, when creatures get this big, I'll deal with them with mind control effects. Desertion, Sword of Temptation, Beguiler of Wills, or I just won't let them resolve. The real issue is the Metalcraft +3 to the rest of his team. So I'm expecting a lot of artifact ramp out of him, but sometimes these decks play heavy equipments to get this Metalcraft online instead of the artifact ramp that they should be playing. Because they'll play a bunch of little tiny creatures and equipments, drop Jor Kadeen, and then go to town with their +3 equipment creatures. So, Jor Kadeen has a couple different builds. It's by far not the best red-white commander. I think that'd probably be Gisela, Blade of Cold Knight. But Jor Kadeen can be good. It really depends on the build. I think the super fast mana build, Lotus Petals, Chrome Moxes, Mox Diamonds, and Token Swarm is a better method for this deck than little tiny efficient creatures. Jor Kadeen is also a very decent hate bear commander. You play stuff like Stranglehold, Thalia, all of stuff to prevent searching, even Mind Sensor, stuff to prevent my drawing, Spirit of the Labyrinth. That's another way to take Jor Kadeen with the little creatures route, and then Jor Kadeen just comes down late game to turn your hate bears into hate giants. So, honestly, the most terrifying build that he could have for me is probably the hate bears. I am on mono blue, so my answers are limited. So this is a serviceable hand. We have a turn 2 Mind Stone and Winter Orb. Now, Winter Orb's not going to be great if he's on the mana artifacts build, but if he is on the heavy ramp build, like lands, Burnished Heart, Solemn, stuff to get more lands, Winter Orb should be pretty good against him. So it also has 3 mana and Vidalcan Aether Mage to go find either Sword of Temptation, Trinket Mage, or Azami seem to be the 3 best targets in this deck most of the time. So if I get Trinket Mage, I can go from 3 up to 5 mana, getting the Crypt. If I get Azami, because I drew lands, Azami will let me draw out of the lands. So Vidalcan Aether Mage is well worth its inclusion in any blue deck that runs even a couple good utility wizards, because Aether Mage means Trinket Mage, which means mana, or Aether Mage means Azami, which means draw, which are the 2 things that every good blue deck wants, mana and draw. So we're going to keep, and we won the die roll, so we're going to lead on Talaria West. Let's close that, close Rayne. Just some good luck over there on the side. It might pop up. And tap land. Alright, I'm happy with tap land. So we're just going to run out the Mind Stone, and he, of course, has the one white mana play that is so much better when you lose the die roll. Land tax. So if an opponent would search in a library, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic lands. That's pretty good. I feel like he probably kept this hand. Now, I don't have a 3rd land right now, so if he plays a land, and I draw one, I will definitely not be turning on land tax. I want to avoid turning this on at all costs. He's at 7 cards in hand, so it's plausible that he wants to play one here, just to try to stay within 1 mana of me, because I had the Mind Stone. So, we'll see. And he has the Mountain, so that's okay. And I don't know if he thinks that I'm going to be playing around this, or I just don't draw lands. So we got Spell Crumple, and we're just going to sit on the Crumple. So he draws. I think he was hoping to be able to use land tax that turn. And he goes with Skull Clamp. Alright, Skull Clamp's respectable. But there's no way that's going to resolve. Because if he's on the token plan, Skull Clamp will just win him that game. So I need to Spell Crumple that. Glad I left my mana up. I would have been able to Aether Mage there, go get the Trinket Mage, but this is basically going to be getting Trinket Mage now because I'll want mana to be able to play around land tax better than he can. Right now I'm only going to have one ahead, but I want to increase that margin by as much as possible without playing more lands than him. So we get a Dismiss, and now we're fully intent on Aether Mage. So he goes with Weathered Wayfarer. Alright, so it doesn't look like he's drawn a land yet because turn 1 he played this tapped, so he wasn't able to play land tax. Turn 2 he played land tax mountain, but he didn't play the Skull Clamp, meaning that he drew it on turn 3. But then he had tapped his Secluded Step for the Skull Clamp, meaning he didn't have Weathered Wayfarer. So I can infer that his last 2 draws were Skull Clamp into Weathered Wayfarer and not lands. On top of the fact that he's not playing any. Because he has this plains here, that's what screwed me up though, because if he had the plains last turn, he would have played it last turn and been able to Weathered Wayfarer and Skull Clamp. I'm guessing that he was hoping to get one more turn out of land tax, and this is him saying, well, I'm not going to get it. And he plays Sword of the Animist, so this is clearly him saying, I don't care about land tax anymore, I'm just going to ramp hard anyway. So we're going to go get Trinket Mage, absolutely, because we have a wonderful artifact in our deck. We get a land. This is actually an awesome draw here, because that means we can go get a 1-mana artifact and cast it this turn before he starts ramping. And we're going to get Pithing Needle. We're going to needle his sword. We've decided to play the mana control game, so we need to make sure this sword just doesn't start getting in there. He'll get far too much mana far too quickly if we allow him to have that sword. So we're going to needle, and that other land was actually really tech because now I have Dismiss the following turn. So I'm going to pass it over, name the Sword of the Animus, so he can't get his mana. And he draws Mana Crypt. Lucky me. So we'll have to deal with that eventually. I'll have to deal with that eventually before I try to go for a Winter Orb plan. Or try to lock up the game with Winter Orb. Pure Steel Paladin. I was really worried that he was going to cast his commander there, because Jor Kadeen would have come down, 1-off Metalcraft, Weathered Wayfarer starts hitting for 4, but if he had just cast the commander, I would have been being hit by a 5/4 first strike every turn. I don't know why he didn't do it. I'm tapped out. I'm blue deck. Now's the time to do it. Pure Steel Paladin is not going to get you anywhere. Jor Kadeen was probably the correct play there. And I think that is where he makes the mistake this game. Alright, so we draw Cyclonic Rift. Not a land, but we weren't going to play one anyway, so we're fine with that. We're going to sit on our Dismiss. I'm going to sit on Dismiss at this point, because I need to keep Jor Kadeen from coming down. And if I can stick on this denial plan, counter Jor Kadeen once, and then get rid of this crypt, they're going to be so far away from getting a 7-mana commander into play that I should be able to close out the game before I have to worry about Jor coming back down. And Jor Kadeen comes down. That is an easy decision, so I will dismiss that, draw a non-land card, but it's still Sabotage, so I now have an answer to the Mana Crypt. I can bounce it, and if I get any other counter, I could counter the Crypt on the way back down. And alright, so a lot happened there. It looked like we were lagging a little bit. I don't know if you can see my mouse. So I drew Hinder. Okay, so I had 4 lands. drew Hinder, and passed the turn. Drew Hinder played Winter Orb, passed the turn. Now, he had just cast Jor Kadeen, so he was tapped out. He goes, untaps his Crypt and a land, and plays Auriok Steel Shaper. Equip costs 1 less. It doesn't matter. I have this needled. And it's 1/1. That's fine with me. And then they go to end their turn, and I'm going to use the Steel Sabotage to bounce the Mana Crypt. And then we're back to my turn, so they're tapped down to 3. Jor Kadeen costs 7, so we are starting to get in shape now. Sky Diamond, that's fantastic, but I don't have the turn to deploy it. I know they're going to be playing Crypt again on their turn, so I want to have the Hinder up to get rid of Crypt for good. And there's the Crypt. We're just not going to let that mana happen. Hinder it to the bottom. I really don't need them having that much mana. And now I'm starting to pull ahead. I'm going to have at least 2 mana per turn now. And then once I deploy the Sky Diamond, we're going up to 3 mana per turn. So here we go. Play the Diamond. They haven't played a land, but I did draw a land. So that means when they eventually cave in and learn that I'm never going to give them advantage off land tax or Weathered Wayfarer. When they cave and play a land, I'll have land immediately. Alright. They untap another white mana. That's fine with me. And ship it back. So we're up to 3 mana. I'm up to 3 mana. They have 2. So now my shields are down for a turn. I'm definitely not cracking Mindstone to draw a card. The mana is more important to me. And they go with Boros Swiftblade, and I'm more than thrilled to see them spending 2 turns worth of mana untaps on a 1/2 double strike. So they still have no lands. I don't know if they're not drawing any, or they just are refusing to play them because they think I'm going to let them have value off land tax or Weathered Wayfarer. I get my basic, and I draw Cold Steel Heart. The deck just keeps delivering. So I get to go up from 1, 2, 3 mana a turn to 1, 2, 3, 4 mana a turn, guaranteed. Assuming I had to spend all of my lands the previous turn. So we're going to Cold Steel Heart. There's thought to naming white here, so that way if I get the Weathered Wayfarer and he plays a land, I can activate Wayfarer. But I kind of don't want to, just because he'll still have land tax going. So I figure more blue's the answer here, especially with Teferi in hand. If I don't have to spend this mana this turn on Cyclonic Rifting something, I will untap, then pass the turn, and be able to Teferi on their end step. So they untap a land and shape it back. Alright, I draw Ponder. I have no attempt to play that. And they just ship it back after drawing. It's fine with me. Skip a turn. Okay, so I cast a fairy. They obviously had nothing. And they had to discard Tempest of Light for the end of their turn. So I'm going to get a land. I draw long-term plans. And that gives me ideas. Long-term plans is going to be how we close out this game now. Because there's something in this deck when the opponent has a ton of creatures. They Swords to Plowshares by Teferi. It's unfortunate because I was hoping to be able to use long-term plans to get my answer to win this game, and then Teferi to flash it in on their end step and immediately use it on my turn. If you've seen some of my other gameplays, you know what I'm thinking about. So we're going to long-term plans for... I'll give you a sec to think. There's the full deck. There's thought to grabbing Sower, more mana, but at this point I don't really need more mana. I'm at 4 turn. I can grab a Zami, I had Aetherling to the deck. I wanted some closing out power, but this was not the decision here, mostly because I don't see a chance to deploy this with 6 mana and be able to protect it from one of his removal spells. So Aetherlink's not the choice. Beguiler of Wills. So powerful. Gain control of a thing, keep it until forever. And conveniently, his whole board is 1 power with the exception of Pure Steel Paladin. So we will be able to take a lot of his creatures with that. I tap my mana. Oh, this is where the replay bugs. Okay. So I did not draw Time Stop this turn. I drew Preordain. Cast Preordain. Now, if you remember, Beguiler goes 3rd from the top from long-term plans. Saw Island Beguiler. I put the island on the bottom and took the Beguiler, and I think I ran it out there this turn. Yeah, I think I ran it out this turn. No, I pondered. I wanted to have counterspells to protect it. So, I pondered. Didn't find... I found a Mana Leak, Into the Royal, and Desertion. And I put it on Into the Royal, Mana Leak, Desertion in that order from the top. So that way, on my following turn... So Ponder drew me Into the Royal. And then the following turn, I would draw Mana Leak, and I would have Mana Leak plus Beguiler. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had the option of playing a land if he plays a land. So if he plays a land, I could go land Beguiler with Mana Leak backup. Underneath the Winter Orb is almost guaranteed that I'm going to untap with Beguiler. If he doesn't play a land, I'm in the situation where I have to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm in this situation where if I got a second land, if I didn't play a land, I just have to accept that he's going to get rid of Beguiler. I could pass the turn, and then use Cyclonic Rift to try to get myself back in this game underneath the orb, because trying to redeploy all of this will take time, and time is what this deck needs at this point. So I play it that way, pass the turn. They play a land and ship it back. I go for my Beguiler, and I get to play the land because they played a 4th, and now I have Mana Leak up because I drew the Mana Leak. Now Beguiler shows Summoning Sickness, I ship the turn back. They go for a 5 mana play, I believe something to deal with my board state, and I have the Mana Leak. So I Mana Leak their spell, untap, and target the Weathered Wayfarer with the Beguiler. I target the Weathered Wayfarer just because I don't want... Oh, I know what they played. They played Stone Hewer Giant, and I had Desertion on top of my library that I remember. So I actually wanted to Desertion the Stone Hewer and get a 4/4. So I had Into the Royal, the Stone Hewer, not Mana Leak. My apologies. So I Into the Royal Stone Hewer. They've F6'd. I go to my turn, cast Beguiler and Beguiler the Wayfarer, and they had not F6'd my turn, and then they let themselves time out. I think the clock will adjust itself. Yeah, you saw it jump from 18 to 7. So they decided that they didn't want to play anymore because I played around the reason they kept their hand, and it came back to bite them. This goes to show you, land tax is a very powerful card, but by playing around it, albeit for a while I didn't have a choice but make it look like I was playing around it, when in fact I didn't have lands. But it's a double-edged sword of land tax. You sort of want to see if your opponent will bite on it for a couple turns, but if your opponent has more mana than you, you just have to accept that it's going to do nothing. Like, he played it on turn 2. If he had not played a land and land taxed 1 turn and just gotten 3 lands out of his deck, this might have been a very different game. And if he had cast Jor Kadeen when I was tapped out, before I had my Dismiss mana up, the turn he played Mana Crypt, it's entirely plausible that they could have won this game. I wasn't really getting anywhere. I probably would have had to spend the Cyclonic Rift at some point to bounce Jor Kadeen after I had dealt with the Mana Crypt. So, it's an interesting game, but I wanted to show that the bug is still here, and land tax can be played around, but it is a card worth playing around almost every single time, especially when you're playing the Mana Rock deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one.